All right, welcome everybody to the Blue Collar Bodybuilding podcast. I'm here with my lovely wife Jackie and my good friend Jody. Jody was nice enough to jump on with us and just have a little bit of talking about a few different topics. And how you doing, Jody?
I'm doing great. Thank y'all for having me on. How are y'all?
We're good.
Doing good.
Yeah, can't complain.
Sorry if anybody hears a cat. We have a cat meowing outside the door.
Yeah,
but
you got a few.
but no, we're super happy to have Jody. We met Jody through the Better Bodies and Gas community, and she kicks ass in there, super motivating. And we were super pumped because we vouched for her to come on as a brand specialist, and now she's a part of our team. So it's awesome to have you on here.
Yeah. Yeah, we're lucky. Met a lot of good people through the gas community and Better Bodies. If anyone that's watching, wants a little motivation or be part of a good group that pushes fitness and in the sense of trying to not just get share fitness journeys, but also kind of help each other from every aspects of life. I suggest you look it up on the Facebook groups and just type in GASP or Better Bodies, and you should be able to find a group and come join us for a lot of fun. But nonetheless, I also wanted to have Jody on because as a few people here know that have watched our past videos, I kind of shared a little story about my own addiction struggles and just some adversities I had gone through in my life. And I just thought it'd be good for myself to share that and hopefully get an opportunity to let others listen, hear where I'm coming from, see that, where I came from my past to where I am now, motivated and feeling healthy and happy, that others can do that for themselves as well. Jackie shared a video on her own struggles and adversities that we released, and we got another one that should be probably out by the time everyone sees this. Friend of mine, Travis, and Jody was someone that came right to mind as well. Has a little bit of a different story, and I'll let her tell that in a minute. Not necessarily drug addiction or alcohol from what we've talked about, but has kind of had some issues in the past that she's had to deal with I guess you'd say eating disorder and anorexia. And I'll kind of let you tell your background, Jody, of what's going on and kind of how fitness has helped you and where you're at now.
Yeah, of course. Well, I've always sort of been in fitness and sports growing up. My mother was always she wasn't in sports growing up, so she always tried to do fitness now and again. But being on a ranch, I was always active, so I always had some sort of an idea of nutrition, especially since livestock and humans are just very similar in that sense. But whenever I first started like really controlling my nutrition was sort of like in 2018. Like I noticed, hey, I can like control this and like track this, and I can notice a difference in my performance. So I started doing that in a very healthily way. I performed very well in my sports endeavors through being able to control my nutrition and the way I was able to perform and enhance that. And I kind of got addicted to that, and I noticed how I could sort of like cut weight because I had been following bodybuilding ever since I got in the gym like 2016 with my mom and Daniel and Bailey, and some of those ladies were like big there at that time. So like 2019, very beginning of it, I decided, hey, I'm going to go on a cut. I want to be able to pole vault better because I thought lighter was better for pole vaulting. It, in a sense, it sort of is because you don't have as much weight to bring yourself up over the pole and like invert yourself and stuff like that. And so I was kind of doing it strategically, which was, I mean, like I was 14, 15 at the time. So I was doing it sort of well. And then I really started getting addicted to like seeing the scale drop. And like I kind of ignored like any signs of it not being the best. And I was still performing very well in my track endeavors. At that time, I was a freshman, and so we went to state track, and my team won the state title. And as a freshman, I got state runner-up in the Open 800 pole vault, and my medley team broke the state record by 8 seconds. I was the final leg, which was the 800 leg, and my 4x4 team also got runner up. So I was really stoked for like the results that my nutrition I had seen with like controlling my nutrition and stuff. And I've always like had a lot of drama going on in different parts of my life. So I think that the control that I felt in that, I clung on to whenever I was not able to feel control in other things going on in life. So at that time, I really dug into, hey, I saw this progress. So now that it's pole vault camp and summer's coming around, I'm really going to start shredding and get diced, get diced. And so it was by like July that I had dropped about 10 pounds from May. And I had started like skipping meals and like intermittent fasting, but most of the time it was just like not eat for like 18-ish hours and then maybe have like 600-700 calories of meat, maybe a little bit of veggie if I was feeling spicy. And so from that time, I was in Georgia for about 7 days for a medical school seminar and whole excursion that I experienced. And I took advantage of that opportunity, and I dropped about another 10 pounds in that 7 days of just, of course, it's humidity that a desert rat is not used to. And so it was just I came back and my mom was just like, Jody, what's going on here? And I was just like, I was just like, it is the humidity, I'll be fine. And so by the time August rolled around, I had dropped about 20 pounds from whenever I was last at school. And my coaches looked at me and they're just like, what's going on here, Jody? And I said, oh no, it's fine. I was just cutting weight, summer. And so they're just like, okay, we'll just make sure to keep an eye on this. And so I decided to not do any other sports because I had grown up being an all-around athlete. I decided to not do any sports at that time other than track, because sophomore year, maybe get a scholarship for track. So I decided to just go into off season and work on off season for track. And whenever we were doing those workouts, I noticed I was like a lot weaker than I used to be. And I mean, I still went to the gym whenever, like all throughout this process, I've always been going to the gym. And like all I was paying attention to was like the striations I was starting to see, and like I wasn't getting a lot of veins because I was just so glycogen depleted. So like some striations were coming in. I was like, oh, hey, this is cool. And so whenever we were working out one day, I was like, I wasn't able to squat maybe even like 95 pounds. And the off-season coach, she had seen me performing so well and all through all the other sports I was doing, and she was very concerned. And so I went to the school counselor, academic counselor, and she said, so we've had a lot of people like concerned for you, and we've all come to the decision that we agree that you're not going to be doing any sports until you get this under control. And I've posted this picture before, but the picture that of me in the Logan jersey with my state medals, that was like the day, like a few days after that. And I laid in my bed crying with my jersey on, because I was just so devastated that what I had done to myself had taken away my pride and joy that I had like given up showing livestock for. And practically I had black sheeped myself of the family, because my family's always been livestock, and not like academics, but like everyone's teachers and stuff like that. So I had to sort of like set myself apart from the family, and it's the only thing I had found like solitude in. And so at that time I decided, well, this thing's taken the only thing that I've really like loved so much from me. Why don't I just like let it take all of me? I don't care anymore. And so I spiraled into a very deep depression. My nurse practitioner referred me to a eating disorder specialist that's I'm actually going to be interviewing in a few days for a different thing. But she referred me to her and also put me on some anti-anxiety medications, which some of the side effects were nausea. And so I really took that opportunity for the nausea to be an excuse to not eat, even whenever I was at home. So that only made me worse. And whenever you don't really want to be helped, it doesn't matter what other people do to give you resources, to give you different tools that can help you. If you don't want to take the opportunity to help yourself, it doesn't matter how good of an opportunity it is. You're not going to do it. And so right about the time I had finally started like making some progress and maybe even gaining a few pounds and adding some calories in was whenever the world shut down, and this was like March 2020, and we were stuck at home, and I was no longer able to go to the gym, which I was like, I had still been going to the gym, and my mom and I had made like a pact. I'll try to get better and do better if I can at least go to the gym every other day or at least 3 days a week. And so we had made that pact, and I was putting at least some sort of effort in. I still wasn't eating carbs. I was just adding more protein in because somehow I was thinking that just more protein was going to make it all better. Anyways, I was consuming like 210 grams at maybe 95 pounds. Anyways, so I had gotten better. I had gained a little bit of weight, and I was just getting worse and worse with the world being like shut down and finishing my sophomore year online. I would go up to our junk hill up at the ranch here on the ranch, and there's different like older pieces of metal and like some old rotary sprinklers. I still have some of these pictures, but I would do like workouts with them, like deadlifts and curls and some semblance of back rows and stuff like that, just to try to get something in for like a mental escape, which the gym has always been for me. And I still wasn't eating enough, and I would do like 30-minute circuits in my room before I went to bed of like abs and stuff like that. And I had finally gotten a little bit better, and I just kept getting worse after that shutdown. And it was August, whenever it was after our 16th birthday. We had gone to South Padre, and like I didn't like ask you to go to the gym. We were there swimming and stuff like that. We did some deep sea fishing, and I was practically just like, I was letting myself eat like fish and stuff like that, which I've always loved fish, but I wasn't like being like a normal person, you would say, on a vacation. And we got back from that and got back to some sort of schedule. And my mom said, Jody, I'm tired of this. If you don't get better, I'm taking you to there was an eating disorder facility in Dallas that we had been referred to. And she's just like, if you're not making strides in a few weeks, I'm taking you. And worked up the waterworks. I'll get better. I'll do better. I'll try. But there was no meaning behind the words I'll try. I had no intent of getting better. And by the time August came around, my mother said, Jody, I'm finished with this. She had been talking with my biological father. They've been divorced ever since my sister and I were born. If she ever talks to him, she's like desperate for whatever. She had been talking to him, and they decided that if I were to go spend some time with him, maybe a change of scenery would help me make a change.
Sure.
And so I went up there it was originally supposed to be 2 weeks, but I just took advantage of that. Like I said, I always took advantage of being able to really control my surroundings, and I just got much worse. And even though I was going to the gym there too, my stepmother, as of at that time, was taking me to a gym that they weren't charging me to be there, but this one gym, I think it's like All Around Fitness in Rio Rancho, but they were very, very kind. These two, both of the owners are have competed in the NPC and stuff like that, and I was like, hey, that's cool. And like it planted a little seed. I was just like, maybe I could get like a coach and maybe start like getting into bodybuilding, because I've always loved it. And so I was still going to the gym there, and they were very, very kind to me, and they could see that I was struggling with whatever. They didn't really know. I don't know if Margie had told them anything, but they were very kind, and I was just like very touched by that, and it kind of like planted a little seed. And so I lost 5 pounds in a matter of 5 days whenever I was there, and I had been talking with my mom, and I was just like, I'm quote unquote miserable here. Can I please come home? And she's like, fine, you can come home. So I came home early, and whenever I walked in, she turned around, and I could tell she was very, very disappointed. And so after then, she was just like, okay, Monday. And it was like a Friday whenever I had gotten back. She's like, okay, Monday, I'm calling this facility and we're driving there now. I'm fed up with this. And so I was, waterworks, and I was just like, I promise I'll change. And so she's just like, you've said this how long now? Going on 2 years now. You've said you'll change, but you haven't. You're going. And so I have always been a part of this supplement brand, Rise Supplements. And so I've been a part of their affiliate program since 2018. And the moderator at that time and affiliate manager, Alex Webb, I had always seen him like posting in the group, and he's always very, very nice. And so I reached out to him because I knew he had been, I knew he was a coach. And I was just like, hey, do you know of any coaches that I could probably like get in contact with? I explained, he had seen like, I had posted about track, and then I dropped off, and then I would post like some nutrition things, which was very like, it was very reflective of what I was doing to myself, and people were concerned and commenting. And anyways, so he said, well, actually, in your case, I would love to be your coach. And my wife at that time, my wife and I will work together to work with you. And so it was just like, okay. And it was very scary for me to let go of that control that I had felt, and that comfort I had felt from being in control of every single thing that I was doing to myself, and every single result I was seeing from what I was doing. But I sent my inquiry forms like August 26th, 2020. And Alex got me all of like my program and stuff like September 1st. And even though I had gotten them and I had really been like wanting to change, I was still like really resentful of the change. And I had like all my tools laid in front of me, and I was just like, how you start like a project, you're sitting in front of a project and you're just like, where do I even start?
Mhm.
I was just so appalled by starting to do something that I really knew I needed to do, really wanted to, but I still had like some sort of grasp of wanting to have like that manipulation. And so like I was like really reluctant to start. And like Alex texted me maybe a week later, hey, let's try to hit our macros today. And I was like, he had programmed like what I won't say an amount of calories, but I was just like maybe at a quarter of that, and it was like 5 p.m. I was just like,
Yeah.
And so I sat there and debated, and like time was ticking, and I can't really sleep very well if I eat too close to bed. It's like, well, I'm gonna have to eat if I want to be able to sleep, but I don't want to have to eat this or eat this amount, or like try to eat carbs for the first time in how long. But I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of the fight. I'm tired of not feeling like I make anyone proud. I'm tired of feeling like empty and alone, and maybe this will make me feel like better. And so I still have this picture favorited in my gallery in my Google Photos. It was a picture of like this big bowl of steak. It was like steak, green beans, like some tortillas, like whole wheat tortillas, like carb choppers. Because of the fiber was supposed to make me. I thought the fiber would make it like easier for me to feel like it was some sort of like less carbs. And like rice cakes. It was the first time I had rice cakes in, I can't remember, like 6 years. I don't think I had even had a rice cake at that time. And like some rice cakes and a bowl of pumpkin with stevia and cinnamon. And from there, I would just try to progress each day. And I got to where I would like hit everything every single day because I was starting to see the progress, and I was starting to like see like a little bit of veins, even though like my muscles were, anyways. Started to see the veins, and I started to feel like have a little bit of energy, and was like, is this what I'm supposed to be feeling like all the time? And so like letting go of the control was the biggest thing for me, even though I'm still controlling what I'm doing now. Like it was a negative and self-detrimental control that it was a form of self-harm, because I had been cutting myself in 2018, like on my legs and stuff like that for, anyways, but it was just a form of self-destruction and hate, I guess you could say, that I had like bound up inside of myself because of the different experiences I had in my life. And I mean, I know everyone experiences those, and everyone has their ways of dealing with them. I mean, David, you mentioned how you dealt with your issues of drinking, and I know everyone goes through that. I've had family members go through severe, and they still struggle with it. And I've had to go through helping my grandfather stop drinking because it was literally killing him. And just seeing how we can all apply those negative experiences and negative thoughts of ourselves and maybe of the world around us, because we perceive the world happening to us instead of us happening to the world. That since those things are happening to us, why take care of ourselves? But
Sure.
Yeah.
That's just what I honestly think a lot of people struggle to realize, that we might not have control of what's going on around us, but we can control what we do because of it, and what we do in spite of it, for lack of better terms sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
right.
very true.
Yeah.
So was you hitting your macros kind of the beginning? Was that kind of the small catalyst that got you to kind of change the tide of upping your calories, starting to eat at least a correct portion of food to survive before you even worry about bodybuilding? Or was that kind of your jumping off?
Yeah. For, I would say like the first 7 months, Alex never mentioned like, I was like, from the very beginning, I was always just like, okay, I'm bodybuilding now, because like I wasn't in school, I wasn't in traditional school anymore, because like very beginning of August, before I even started like with Alex and them, I had gone into a hybrid learning program where I wouldn't be able to be in a part of a sporting association or anything like that. So I was just like, okay, bodybuilding. And so we were like, I guess you would say, reversing for the first 7 months. Whenever I had started with them, I wasn't at times I would, for the first few weeks of whenever I started hitting my macros, I wouldn't hit them like completely. And then I started like, I'm a perfectionist. I was like, if I have these numbers, why don't I hit them to a T? And so I would hit them to a T. And so after that, and seeing the progress, I've just always, Alex always says, you don't always have to hit these. Well, he would say this until he's got to know me like a little bit better, and he noticed, she's fine. He'd just be within like 5 grams. And like, I would always be like, why don't I hit 0? And so, yeah. And so, we reversed for like the first 7 months. And that was like in January 2021, like there was a San Antonio posing seminar that FBF was putting on. Mm-hmm. And I had been sending this to my mom, the flyers to my mom, for like a few months ahead. And I was just like, I know we don't really, I hadn't done anything for my, like that ever. And I don't really ask to do a lot of those things. And she was just like, well, why don't we? And I was just like, are you sure? I was surprised that she said yes. I thought she would say, no, that's too far away. And so we went, and she ended up meeting her current coach, Jordan Lee. But just the whole atmosphere, it like made me feel so whole again for some reason. I had felt so empty and alone for so long. I mean, like I had found like a family within Alex and Heather, but there's only so much of a family that you can feel online. And there aren't any bodybuilders, or I'm always alone in the gym most of the time. I'm always lifting by myself, which some people are kind of upset about whenever I'm lifting heavy. But I've always just been so alone. And so whenever I was first exposed to the bodybuilding community, I just felt so whole. And it felt like this big warm hug had fallen over me. I was like, I feel like I'm home in this environment. And so I met Jamie DeBernard and some other people. I still have the post on my page, but I met these people, and like I wasn't even a part of the team, but they were just so nice and so welcoming. And I met what's her name? Sandy Williamson. And just to see her like her passion for the sport, she was even crying, talking about a whole lot of stuff. And I was just like so uplifted by the whole experience. And I knew that from that point, I had found what I was meant to be doing. And whenever we were signing in, because everyone was like to type in their email, your name, and like what category you're posing in, and I had never asked Alex what category. And so I had texted him, but he replied much later whenever I didn't need the answer. I was just like, hey, what division do you think I should be doing? And I just had no idea. And so I put women's physique. It's fine. And so everyone was on the script, like they would do the usual NPC presentations where they go through like each division with the pictures and the posing and the criteria and stuff like that. So they went bikini. I was like, okay, that's cool. I had like screenshotted this in like 2019 as one girl, and as a bikini competitor. I didn't know that at that time, but bikini, and it was like right when wellness was starting in the US. So wellness, and they were talking about how it's such a great opportunity for people that have been in sports all the time growing up, and now they're transitioning, and it's better for ladies that were like track runners and stuff like that. I was a track runner, but I'm like, I had barely just hit 100 pounds. And it was like a monumental moment for me to see 3 digits on the scale, because for how long I had only been 2 digits.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I thought it was all big and bad going into this. I was just like, I'm filing 100 pounds. I'm going to put women's physique. And so, wellness was up there, and then they put figure up there. She's like, hey, that looks cool. And, of course, it said Gillen up there. And I was just like, okay, that looks cool, but I'm not much of a heels person. And then women's physique is up there. I'm just like, I think I'm going to do that. Okay. And so, and then women's bodybuilding, and then they went into the men's stuff, even though there wasn't very many men there. And so we separated into posing groups, and so they kind of looked me up and down, and they're just like, okay, you're going to bikini. And I was just kind of like, an ego hit. I was just, because I had thought I was all big and bad and stuff like that, but I posed with Maya Anastabe. I know I'm not saying her name right. And another lady, Nicole Desmond. Anyways, I posted in their groups, and they were just like, girl, look at your back. They were hyping me up because, I just like was very like separated. I've never really been a person to stand out like in a crowd and stuff like that. I always make sure that I'm the very first one in line. I always make sure I'm the very first person in the front row, because I know it's like a sign of really being involved in it. But I was posing, and they're just like, you're looking good, but you really need to eat. And I was just like, well, I just finally hit 100 pounds. Anyways, I didn't take the time to really explain to them until like later on. And I met like Ashlyn Little, and she was just like, I'm like 100 pounds on stage. And so I was just like, I'm uncomfortable right now, and I'm barely like ready for anything like that. How am I going to like keep pushing? How far do I really want to go? And like leaving that, I was just like very unsure of what I wanted to do, because I had like really started this whole thing just thinking I'll just gain enough weight to get my mom off my back, and then I'll just maintain it. And like I had hit 100 pounds, and I was just like, well, I'm really uncomfortable right now. And you know, I was like still like pretty really lean anyways, like in relation to everything else. And so I asked Alex, I'm just like, so where are we going from here? He's just like, well, we're going to keep building. And I had found this one show that was in April that was put on by like a local gym. Well, local, it's in Texas, Amarillo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it wasn't regulated by any like anything, but it was like by NPC guidelines and stuff like that. I was just like, do you think we could do this? He's like, well, I would have. We're still building right now, and that wouldn't be very. It wouldn't be very beneficial, anyways. I thought it was all big and bad asking, and he's just like, like, really, I don't think it would be beneficial in the long run. I'm just like, yeah, no. Anyways, but then we just kept building and building, and then about August 2021, after I had graduated, I had hit 135-ish. I can't quite remember. I could pull it up. Anyways, but I had been like my waist was getting a little bit bigger. Like you could notice that like the glycogen sensitivity and stuff like that was leaving, because like I mean I was kind of good at like being good with my meal timing and stuff like that, but I was still only like hitting 3 meals a day with the intake I was at. I was like at 2,700 with some change, and hitting just 3 of those. Anyways, in the long run, I could have been a better athlete on my side and like managed myself a little bit better. But Alex was just like, hey, why don't we do a recomp? I was just like, finally a change. I'm doing something different. And so we were in a recomp from August 2021 to May 2022. And I hit like 140 in that recomp, because, you know, just adding some cardio, some extra activity, and I had really gotten much better at managing myself with meals and stuff like that, and sleep. Even though I was in a dorm and I wasn't sleeping very well, I was still at least with my twin, and she's always been very supportive of this bodybuilding. She's seen my progress and how much I'm just enthralled with it, and so she's always been supportive. And we made sure we were roomed together just for different things. And so all throughout that, I've just always been very mindful that I know a lot of people are going to be very reluctant of me prepping and cutting back down, because people are going to think, oh my God, she's relapsing. She's going to lose it. She's really going to go downhill this time. And I've had some family members, I mean, they've like noticed that I've been good with this bodybuilding stuff, but they don't really understand. They're just like, well, I don't know how far you're going to take this. And in my mind, I'm just like, well, you don't really have anything other than, let's say you're teaching that you retired from or whatever, that you've ever really been supportive or supported through or found a passion for. And you might be passionate about your bottle, but maybe if you were to find something else to be passionate about or find love for, then maybe you can understand that it might be an addiction, but it's a healthy addiction that benefits you in the long run. And bodybuilding is we're so mindful of our internal health, much more than a whole lot of people. And we supplement, and we do blood work, and we're mindful of how our bodies feel. We get the body work. We do so much more for our bodies than a large majority of the population do, that I don't think a whole lot of people understand how we can go from an addiction, whether it be from an addiction to starving yourself or an addiction to substances or alcohol or whatever, or food. I mean, people can go from obese to bodybuilding.
Right.
Yeah.
People don't really understand. People don't really understand the dedication, especially nowadays, the dedication and the discipline. But it's an addiction that really benefits people. And for lack of better terms, I'm calling it an addiction, but it's more of like
Like an obsession sometimes.
passion or
Yeah.
yeah, an obsession.
Yeah.
Depending on the person, a healthy obsession.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
But
Yeah, it's a very small niche of people, you know. But no, I absolutely admire you, Jody, and seeing you go from one extreme to the other. I can imagine that all of your emotions are up and down, because I mean, I deal with emotions when it comes to dealing with certain things in bodybuilding, from when anything coming from like my diet plan changing or the mirror, like looking in the mirror. How are your emotions through all of this?
I honestly don't really have emotions. Like I know it might not sound like the best thing, but I don't really like apply emotions to how I'm doing or changing. I might like I'm really guilty of having a lot of negative self-talk, which I need to work on. I always like self-detriment myself in the mirror, especially whenever I'm lifting for some reason. Just I go to town on myself whenever I'm lifting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my emotion I really try to just not have an emotional tie to I really get bad about the scale every once in a while, even though it's not a really big thing in bodybuilding.
Right.
But I do go through really bad bouts of depression every once in a while, just because of I most of the time, if I have any sort of emotion, it's because of outside things outside of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Life events and stuff like that. I don't really let those emotions get into my bodybuilding, because I consider it my job, even though, it's more of like a passion and a lifestyle. I consider it my job and my first and foremost, and I don't let those emotions take over what I'm going to do that day, or it change if I'm going to hit my macros or not, because I could easily just like not hit my macros, or not go as hard in my training, or not keep my heart rate. I mean, I go a little harder on my cardio than I'm supposed to, but I could easily not do those things and just half-heartedly do those things because of the distractions of emotions that I have in other areas of my life. But whenever it comes to something that you have goals in, and that you have your mind set on, emotions, yes, they're very, very valid, and they are very, very important, especially whenever you're mindful of them and know how they make you act or react to other people. It Even though you do need to keep them in mind, I feel like there's a time and place for them. It depends on the person, but if you've been a person that you can either be a very emotional person or just in a very out of the way person, it really depends. But it might, like I said, it might not be the most healthy thing, but I usually do not have emotions.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Yeah.
it's probably like, it probably sounds like that's probably a defense, like a defense mechanism you put in place too. Like, you were ruled by emotions or thought or self, like you say, thinking, self-negative talk to yourself, so you probably developed, in the same sense, the ability to shut that out and use it as a tool, and it's kind of like myself. I had to take a lot of the negative things I had and put them towards some sort of benefit for a tool for myself, or actually just switch things around. So like not caring about what happened to me, how I felt that day, if I got any sleep. Now I'm doing the opposite. Everything that I think I used to not care about, is actually what I'm going to try to focus on. And
Yeah.
it's not easy. I can only imagine, when I was with my addiction, I had obviously I could see myself physically getting sick, but I was looking just more and more like the average American, just getting fatter by the day. I kind of blended into society, and don't take it the wrong way, but when they see a person like yourself that's, skinnier than you see at any time, more bone than muscle, it just had to be a constant reminder to yourself. And, Did you ever kind of have look in the mirror and just say to yourself, like, what did I do? Or did you have like an oh shit moment? Or was this always just to kind of appease mom and then you found a
Like a
love
passion,
for it?
right.
Yeah, love for the change.
Well, I had always been uh, throughout the whole eating disorder. I had been my mom would like she's always been give a lot of pictures posted on Facebook, mom. So I would always like look at the pictures she tagged me in, and I would just be like, man, I'm looking like a little shredded, like I'm looking good. I would always think I'm looking good, and like I'm seeing the progress I'm putting my work into. And some people would always well, my mom would get messages and she would sometimes tell me about them. I don't know how many she would get, but were always concerned. And I actually learned about some rumors that were going around that I like had cancer or something like that. I was like so ill that I was dying because of like the way I was just like so sunken in my eyes. Like I have bags now anyways, but like very, very sunken in eyes. And I was my pants would sag off of me even though I was wearing a belt and belt buckle. And like I was wearing like maybe it's size 25R in Ariats, if that means anything. It's just like a 25 regular length, and I'm short anyways, so I always need like shorter pant legs, but those were starting to get a little long on me. And like I actually still have an extra small like flannel that would button up was like hanging off me, and I just thought, I'm just making progress.
Yeah.
And I had an oh shit moment whenever my mom took a picture of me whenever I was untying one of my sister's show heifers. And like I was like was just almost like the pole right next to me. And like my scapulas were pointing out so much that it looked like there's a flag on the pole. And it's just like, oh shit, I look like that. And that was just like right at the same time that it was actually I was untying her heifer like for getting ready for the fair, which was whenever I got back from being at my dad's. So it was like right in the same time frame. Like it was all at once. Like a little plan was seed was planted about NPC bodybuilding, like finally getting into it, and then like last resort and stuff like that. So it all kind of cascaded at once, which it had been compiling for how long. So finally, maybe a floodgates open. But
Right.
I can send y'all that picture. I can send y'all that picture later. But yeah.
Yeah. Later
sure.
on, if you whatever you don't mind sharing, send us some stuff so we can kind of drop them in throughout our conversation so people can see them.
Yeah.
Whatever you're comfortable with. But what were you gonna say, sweetie?
No, I was going to say that in bodybuilding, I think that pretty much everybody definitely deals with body dysmorphia at some sort in bodybuilding. And also same with the negative self-talk.
Mhm.
I think that just kind of comes along with the sport, but with you we're changing the direction into prep now. So how do you look at it as like a job? So are you able to separate the whole food change? Like, is it going to mess with
Trigger.
your mind? Yeah. Like trigger you at all any kind of way where the food is going to be changed?
No, it hasn't. Maybe I know a whole lot of coaches put people onto meal plans, but Alex has trusted me, and he's like made sure that I know my stuff about he knows that I do a lot of studying about nutrition and stuff like that. But we make sure that we're in like collaboration with what I'm doing, as for like meals and macros and stuff like that. But I haven't really like had an issue with decreasing food. Every once in a while I get like some thoughts, but I don't really have any bad intrusive thoughts about food being lowered and stuff like that. Every once in a while, like I said, I'll have some thoughts here and there, and I'm just like, well, that's a stupid thought. But
Yeah.
in the long run, it's just ever since I flipped the switch of I'm not what that was anymore. It's just been like second nature.
Right. Yeah. And then you get the devil and the angel on the side of
Yeah.
you telling you one thing, you know?
Because I know for myself,
Yeah.
I try to get, when I'm trying to grow and you get addicted to the scale, not the scale, but the look as well. You see yourself getting bigger. And then it kind of gets addicting getting leaner. It's like, I am looking better. So you want to push harder. It's hard to pull the reins back sometimes, but learn, education is power. The more you know, that, like, the fact that a lot of do's and don'ts of nutrition now compared to when you were anorexic, you were literally just trying to make yourself look better. If you had all the knowledge you had at the time, imagine, what you could have done with it. But then you develop an addiction of dropping weight, the wrong nutritional things, and just getting to the extremes. And
Right.
one thing I heard you say that kind of, a few times I'd hear you say that you're almost kind of like making up excuses, like, oh, the humidity. So I have a great excuse to explain what I'm doing, because the one addiction's different than in a sense, it's different than what you've gone through, and vice versa. I can't relate to everything, of course, but there is a whole lot of excuse making for sure. I found
Yes.
myself rationalizing, like, oh, I'm fine, my buddies can keep up with me and drinking once in a while, and I'd find myself making a lot of excuses. And that was one thing I had to learn, was to be just flat out open, whether that's with my wife or to myself or to my friends or just the people. And so it's kind of funny that they all have their little similarities, these things that we do to ourselves that are just negatives, and we find ourselves making excuses. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad that you kind of recognize that you can call your own BS out. Like, Jackie asked you if you have any kind of, does it trigger you a little bit to drop calories? And you're able to kind of identify that, that would be a problem if you don't have a strong mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you developed a really strong mindset, because you need it for this sport for sure.
Yeah.
So
What's your mom and family and sister all think of you now? I mean, I can only imagine they're impressed, but did they ever think you'd take it to this? Because I mean, the pictures of you are night and day from where you've been to where you are now. I mean,
it's crazy.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. But what do
Thank you.
what do they seem to think? I mean, do they see a happier Jody? Are they proud to see what's going on? Or
Yes, my twin, actually, we've always been like in and out of the gym together. We used to be running partners in track, and we would train Muay Thai together and stuff like that. And so she's always been like supportive of me being more for athletics and stuff like that than livestock, because she would be the only one I would tell that, hey, I'm miserable doing this livestock stuff. Even though I loved it, it just wasn't speaking to me like athletics were. And so she's always been super supportive of me, and she goes to the gym every once in a while with my mom and I. And every time she's just like, well, you're my inspiration to do it. And it just touches my heart. But she's very supportive. And my mom actually got into bodybuilding. Like I said, whenever we went to San Antonio, she met Jordan Lathan, but she was just like, for the first few, from like January to March, she was like, well, I'm thinking about it. And then she finally pulled the trigger in March.
Yeah.
But she's been with her since then. And she's just, she originally started it just to be able to relate to me throughout bodybuilding and have something that we could bond for.
Yeah.
She didn't tell me this until like a few months ago, which I was just like, okay, I didn't know that you felt like you had to. Anyways, but she's always been super supportive. Whenever I first started like my recomp, she was kind of reluctant and worried that I would like go back downhill, but she didn't really understand like what the terminology of recomp was. And so I like explained to her, and I mean, I know mothers always like worry, but she knows that I have a mindset towards bodybuilding centric, and she knows that I have like the mental ability to be able to understand that there's a difference between what I'm doing now and what was going on then. I'm not really close with the rest of my family. My grandfather, like, he just every once in a while mentions, oh, Jody, you're like, he'll like grab my arms. That's some hard stuff right there. And he like smiles and stuff. But I know that he's proud of me. He's not very vocal about it, but I know he's like very proud. Because he's just like, he's been through it with me, and I've always like, I helped him through his like battle with his alcohol addiction after my grandmother was murdered. He was like he really went into it with the bottle, and like she was murdered before my twin and I were born, so I had practically grown up with him being drunk half of the time, and so helping him through that like really like grew our bond together. And he's been like the only like steady father figure in my life. So knowing that he's like at least acknowledging my progress, it always like makes me sort of happy, because knowing the hard person he was like back in his day, even though like people are always softer with their grandchildren, it makes me happy to know that even though it's not like livestock, that he's proud. My biological father's side of the family, I'm not really super close with them, but they always like mention, Jody, you're looking like really good now. And they always ask like, and so how's the bodybuilding? Well, they don't say bodybuilding. My grandmother on that side always says, well, how's your eating stuff going? Are you still hitting the gym? So they're invested in, like any good grandparent or family member would be there, invested in you succeeding what you're interested in. But I don't think that any of them expected me to go as far as I am going with it now. I think they just expected me to, like I said, just gain enough weight to get people off my back, and I would do my own thing. But
No, it's
that,
good
as far as I know,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, actually during my eating disorder, I don't know what family member it was. I'm pretty sure I know what family member it was, but had actually called Child Protective Services about. I know it was just like a whole spiteful thing about, but a part of the report was about my eating disorder, and so I'm not close with that family member, and I don't know if they even know what I'm doing now. Probably through the grapevine they've heard, but I'm not. One thing I try to do is eliminate all toxic people, things. I don't have time for things that do not contribute to me anymore. It might sound selfish at times, but if it doesn't like add to me, I'm not gonna add to it. Like I only have so much time and resources for myself and for the things that I really care for. I'm not gonna add to the stress of trying to make people happy that I haven't heard from this person. I haven't seen this person since I was maybe 6 years old.
Mhm.
Right.
Like why would I stress about doing anything for anyone that,
Yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, not to sound like selfish, but I'm going to do things for me that make me happy, and if it doesn't make anyone else happy, that's fine.
Yeah. No, you gotta do what you gotta do. That's the right
Yeah.
mindset for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I mean, that's it's important to have that support for sure, because if you don't have, people in your corner, it's not that it's impossible. I don't want to discourage anyone thinking they can't do anything on their own, but I know myself, it would have been a 1 in a million chance if I didn't have my family, I didn't have my wife, and even the bodybuilding community that I was a part of. I mean, I never really, down the road, I'll have to tell MJ this next time we talk, but in person. But I mean, if it wasn't for like that Gasping Better Bodies community, to find like-minded people in this niche thing that pulled me out of something not everyone can relate to, that was a huge asset to me. I mean, it was big. I mean, this is half the reason we're talking right now, and able to share our stories and where we've been from.
Yeah.
One question I wanted to ask you that I don't want to forget is just, I asked a few other people this, is if you could give some advice to the Jody from 2018, I think you said, or at the lowest of your low, if you could turn back and go through a time machine and give some advice or shake yourself, how would that convo go? What would you give advice to, or someone that's in the same scenario that's listening right now?
You're not doing what you think you're doing. Even though it feels comfortable and it feels like you're making a whole lot of progress towards what you think is going to make you happy and going to make you feel fulfilled, it's going to leave you more empty in the long run, and it's going to only worsen the way you feel physically and mentally, because our physical and mental health are so intertwined. our internal health. And I could go into this whole spiel. I've written a paper on it. But whenever you're starving, you're essentially starving yourself, or you're poisoning yourself, or you're degrading yourself in some sort of fashion. That's what any sort of addiction is. And at the end of the day, whatever we're doing, it's negatively affecting our internal health at some point or another. It's affecting the way you're mentally feeling, even though you don't think you're depressed. It's making the way you feel much worse. And it's just going to be a never-ending cycle of feeling like you're making progress in some sort of fashion towards what you think is going to make someone proud of you someday. If you hit this nominal goal that you don't even know what your goal is. What is your goal if you don't even know your goal? What are you trying to do? If you don't even know what your goal is, why are you even doing what you're doing? And the health consequences, I mean, I still deal with them now. The health consequences in the long run are not worth what you think you're doing. And the person you become whenever you're doing that to yourself, you're very toxic and it's not like what we do is self-centered now, but in a different way. You're very self-centered and toxic, and I wasn't aware of it then. I just put off radiated so much hate and negativity because I had so much hatred for myself. And I was just so down on myself that people didn't like being around me anymore, even though I was never like a huge friend group person. Like, people didn't like being around me anymore. So it's just everything intertwines with everything, your internal health and your mental health. So that's something I would say. And maybe a little bit of better terminology, but
yeah, no, that's great.
Good.
That's great advice. Exactly. Did you have something you were gonna?
I can't think of the moment.
That's all right. If you think of it, just let it out. Yeah, I mean, you've been through a lot, Jody. I mean, I just can't imagine that. What was your lowest weight that you got into?
I think like 88 pounds.
In your
and
house?
I'm sorry.
And how tall are you?
I'm like 5'2". I was gonna say I'm not a very tall individual, so it's not as I'm not like comparing, but it's not as extreme as like someone that's a little taller than me being at that weight. But
Yeah.
all of my family is very much a petite build. So, but it was still, from what I was like 130 whenever I was performing really well in track. So if that's a comparison.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's just I can't even imagine. That's literally like my left leg right now is like 88.
Yeah.
That's well, good for you, Jody. I mean, I can tell you're in a better place for sure. I mean, you're a huge part of the community that we're in. Like, you constantly amaze us. And I'm not trying to make this a praise Jody scenario, but I mean, it truly is. You're one of the hardest workers that I see out there all the time. In Better Bodies and Gas, we have, I think, between the two communities, close to over 20,000 people combined in these groups. And you're literally one of the hardest working women I've ever come across. I mean, in the pursuit of your goals and the transparency you have, because you've never been shy to kind of show people where you've come from as well. And I found that kind of comforting for me to do myself, to share with other people, even in these groups or just through one-on-one. And it feels good for me. I'd imagine it's somewhat rewarding for you, and you get something out of it, and I hope you are as well. So I just hope you keep doing what you're doing. It wouldn't be the same without you, that's for sure.
That's right.
But what's on the agenda for you I know you got a show lined up, or do you not want to put it out there? Or what's on the agenda for you next?
First of all, I'd really like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for those kind words. I really appreciate it. And I've always wanted to just help others in the way that I've been helped. I've always said that from like the beginning of bodybuilding. I want to help others the way I've been helped through the community and the organization. And I just want to give back to something that truly saved my life, and I want to be able to do that for others and hopefully prevent what I went through for other individuals, whether it be a female or a male, because males go through the same amount, but it's less addressed. As for a show, I'm not like being super. I'm not like being like, oh, I'm not really super being public about it, but I'm like 8 weeks out now.
Awesome.
It's a Texas show. I don't think Better Bodies is having a booth there from what I remember from our meeting.
Yeah.
But we haven't visited. Alex did bring up possibly also doing the teen nationals in July in Pittsburgh, but whenever I looked through all of the last few years, there's only been like 1 or 2 teens in each category, and I said I don't know if it would be worth going there. I mean, even though my grandparents are like close to Pittsburgh anyways, I don't know if it would be worth traveling all that distance for 2 people in a show. I mean like if it would be like for going, I don't know if I don't think they don't even award pro cards for the teen category there, do they?
Not that
I don't even remember.
I don't think you're going to get it as a teen in a teen category, or at least it was in the past.
Yeah, only in the open categories you'll get a pro card, and they don't do open categories at that show. So
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not gonna. But anyways, that's the only other show he brought up. I don't know what we're doing after the show. My guess would be going to a growth phase after we reverse, of course. But I have not been informed.
The one question I have, bodybuilding related, because of your experience, because of your experience with food, just being playing a mental game on you. Do you guys plan on doing like an aggressive rebound for you? Like, I'm a big fan of my clients is if we get you super lean, we're not going to immediately just throw reverse diet of like a chart that's going to show the calories going up real slow. Sometimes we try to take that rebound window and really push it aggressively with the clean food, stay super clean, not go out and binge eat pizza. But we see a lot of filling and a lot of pushing of the glycogen, as you can imagine, and just really pushing the ability we have to store. You're the most insulin sensitive at that time. You're as lean as can be, where you have the biggest runway for mistake, I guess you'd say, or putting some body fat on. Water retention usually just kind of tops out, and then you can continue to progress. You guys, is it because of his coaching style, or is that something specifically for you? You guys rebound slowly, like reverse diet?
I haven't asked Alex about this. There's a lot of things going on outside of bodybuilding in his life, and I'm always understanding of that because we all have that. But the last time we reversed, or whenever actually the first handful of weeks during this prep, we were reversing. It was like maybe an extra 100 or 200 calories each week, just because I had been cutting from May 2022 to December 2022, whenever they finally released the schedule for Texas NBC, like the very last day of the year. We reversed for like the first 5 or 6 weeks, just to give my metabolism a break, because I had gotten down to pretty low food, but I wasn't doing as much cardio as I'm doing now. And so the way, from what I understand, we take it as like a moderate approach, but maybe since I'll be getting like conscious lean this time, we will possibly be doing what you discussed, but I have not addressed that yet. Probably I should, since I'm like 8 weeks out now, but I honestly, sometimes there's a fine line for me, because I always try to be like, okay, yes, there's the future, but I also have to take care of what's going on right now, because I have final exams like at 2 weeks out, which not the best planning on my part. But I'm confident in my abilities to be able to manage it, because I like, not to compare what I'm doing now to what I used to do then, but I used to take like the ACT without eating the whole day. I mean, like, and I have better grade, like my mental performance is a whole lot better now because of like the way I fuel myself.
Yeah.
I'm not bragging on myself, but I have a 4.0 and I've worked for that. I'm confident in my abilities to be able to maintain whatever I need to, and just I'm very goal oriented and I always set goals. So like I said, probably what you had mentioned, taking advantage of that post show rebound is my estimation is what we're going to be doing, but you never know. He might find a show that he might want us to do. That it might be like we'll see whenever we come to it. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm telling you, someone with you being such a young lady, you are just so on top of your game. You know, you get a good head on your shoulders, Jody.
Yeah, you got a bright future ahead of you. You keep working with the work ethic that you have.
I wish I had that when I was your age. Seriously, it's awesome. Keep going. You're killing it.
Yeah. The one advice I could give you is we're 30, I'm 33, Jackie's 32. And if we always tell ourselves, if we had just started what we're doing, as of recently, the past handful of years, if we had started that right out of high school, it would have been like, oh, where could you be now? So, take advantage. I'm telling you, everyone says that. Take advantage of. It doesn't mean rush things or push things hard. Just realize you have kind of a window to operate optimally as anything would. There's a money making time in life. There's a time to do a certain things with your physique as well. But you're lucky you have time at your side. So I guess there is no rush for anything either. Do what's always best for yourself. But
just having those like extra 5 years adds on such a huge difference.
I know. It's actually funny. I think you said what was it, August or September, you got your diet plan where you finally started increasing calories, right? In 2020. It was probably a month later I got sober in 2020 in October. So we probably have close to the same timeline of being fully invested 2.5 roughly years into the bodybuilding here. So just imagine all the time that you spent bringing your weight down, looking for something that you didn't have a goal for, if it could have been spent optimally. So
I think we all like compare and question what we used to do, but I think dwelling in the past sometimes doesn't do us any good, because we could be spending that time that we are dwelling on the past on actually doing what we wanted to be doing then. Actually, sometimes I think about whenever I was in and out of the gym all the time, if I had actually like paid attention to nutrition or been able to understand like my nutrition fully, even though I did know about nutrition, and like even though I did know about like carbohydrates and fats and all that stuff, like I know we all turn a blind eye to what we don't want to address. So if I honestly, sometimes I think about whenever I drive by people practicing track, and I see like people pole vaulting, because it still like has a special place in my heart. I always wonder what I would be able to do now, even though bodybuilding is very much what I want to be doing now. I think we all like sometimes just question what if, and if we get super fixated on the what if, we fixate too much on that and turn that what if into never having been done, since we can be using that time to actually do it. Even though it might not have been in the time frame we wanted to, we can still do it. So
and if you didn't go through what you had in the past, who knows if you would have even been on the path you are now. If I wasn't an alcoholic and put myself to one extreme of heavy weight, I was a 300-pound dude and as unhealthy as can be, would I have ever even had a switch to flip and decide to go the other route? So no, so that's a good point. But that just proves that past, as much as you don't dwell on the negatives, there's always something to learn from it, of course, and apply in the future. But this was fun. I'm glad that we got we've been wanting to hear your story there, and I really hope, like I said earlier, and it sounds like you're on the same team, that if this just helps anybody realize whether they can relate to Jody, myself, Jackie, or the other people that are coming out on my podcast here, that's great. Even if it's just one person, that's my whole goal, is just because I could have used that for sure at one point. my goals were very small when I quit drinking. It was to get to tomorrow sober, and it was to get to the next day. And now I'm projecting goals out years ahead of time, and really just finding true happiness, changing the way that I live my life. And I've seen it happen with her mentality, where she's come from, and I've literally seen it through a computer doing the same thing in your life, Jody. So we're here for you if you ever need anything. Of course, that, but the same goes to anyone out there. I know if you ever reached out, anyone that's watching, if there's something that you can relate to Jody, I know I know I can speak on her behalf for that point. If you were to reach out to a girl like her, she'd give you the attention and the best knowledge she can and best advice. So if anyone has anything that they want to say before we jump off, anything?
Not in particular. I'm just, I always praise Jody. I'm just very, very happy that I met her. I forget though, what year was it that you did come into our community? Was it 2018?
It was 2021.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Or 2020. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I it's all good. I had always been like a Nike wearer because I was a track runner, and then I had seen like Olivia Gravengard wearing Better Bodies and Liv Roth wearing Better Bodies. I was just like, these girls are badass. I want to see what this is all about. And then
exactly.
I went straight from Nike to Gasp and Better Bodies. So yes, but I'm extremely blessed to have you both in my corner, and I'm really thankful for honestly, you guys are a whole lot better than a lot of my family are to me. I honestly say this to some very close people in my life, but honestly, a whole lot of people in our lives are family by choice, not by blood. And so we can always find people through different avenues. Even though we make ourselves feel like we're so alone, there's someone out there that's close to you that really cares about you, and they're just waiting for you to show them the opportunity that they can be there for you.
100%. Well
Absolutely.
said. Well said.
Well, everybody,
so thank you for that.
Yeah, and just stay on after I turn off the recording, Jody, if you don't mind. But if anybody's got any questions for us, they can always drop them in the comments below. Anything else they want to hear more of, feel free to reach out to us, or again, put in the comments, or I'll make sure Jody's IG's here and her contact info is in the description below. But we appreciate everybody watching. Hopefully we're able to help some people, or at least amuse you for a bit. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one. All right.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.